What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 7 of the Coach and the Couch Potato. As always, I'm Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite the screen, we've got Coach Slate. What is good, sir?
What's going on, man? Episode 7. That is crazy. That's pretty cool to think about, man. That 7 episodes and people are still listening to us. So,
Yeah, no
it's all
doubt. And
good
they're
things,
listening to us
man.
in February of all
Yeah, I know.
times.
I know.
But no, I guess it speaks volumes about the support we get, as we say every episode.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's
uh,
pretty cool.
how's Shakespeare going?
Dude, it's this past so we're in we finished act 4. In act 4, if you've ever read Macbeth, it gets pretty wild. So the kids, we've got the comic book version of it, and they're into it. So finally, it took 3 acts, but we are finally into it. So
The
I'm
slow
excited.
build.
The slow build. I know that they're getting tired of me being excited about it. So they're probably just trying to, get me to shut up. And they figure if they show emotion, they'll actually get me to shut up.
That is too cool. Well, cool
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, man.
Good deal. Um, so yeah, this episode is the one that Slate has been waiting on.
Pretty
We're
excited.
gonna dive right into it.
Yeah,
Um, the 2024 defensive recruits. Um, kind of a mixed bag of tricks, I guess you would say.
for sure.
Uh, probably one, we'll call it a glaring weakness in the class, and that's the edge position.
Yeah,
Um, we've got a guy in the class who's considered an edge. Actually, kind of, we'll call it 1.5, but I don't know that either one of them stay there.
dude, I know,
Um,
man.
so we'll start with the big fish, and that's Edric Houston, um, Buford, Georgia,
Yeah,
absolute powerhouse of a school. Um, you know,
powerhouse.
depending on where you look, 4-star, 5-star guy. This was one of those recruitments that was really fun to watch, but it's also the ones that cause you to drink when you take recruiting as serious as we do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
everybody was watching the Ryan Day presser on early signing day. Edric Houston was the phone call that he got in the middle of the presser, to say that he was going to honor his commitment to Ohio State. And it was later kind of leaked out there, and true irony, I guess you would say, that Alabama was pushing the Larry Johnson's going to
I
retire
know,
narrative,
man.
and then Saban retires.
Yeah,
Um, One thing I noticed as I kind of looked through this class that stands out to me and the stuff I look at, multi-sport athletes,
yeah, big time.
lots of them.
Yep.
This kid wrestled,
Yeah,
which has always been a push for those guys to play, especially on the lines, O and D.
yeah,
But honestly, it'll help anybody.
yep,
Um, Definitely a frame to move inside. He's a little stiff, which
yeah.
that's going to be more of what you'll cover.
Hmm.
But what do you see with this kid?
Yeah, so Edric Houston, 6'4". They've listed at 270 pounds. He's coming in right now as an edge rusher, but like you said, man, his frame, like he could easily bump down and be a inside 3 technique and do that at a very high level. I do see some stiffness, but I see a lot of violence as well. And with the defensive line, you want to see violent hands, and you want to see people that are able to penetrate and create havoc in the backfield. And that is a strength of his. I mean, he can do that at an elite level. I think that he has the potential to be a guy who can push for minutes as a freshman. I really do. I think he's got that type of ability, and I could see why, Ohio State and Larry Johnson were coveting him so much because he has just, I don't want to like say Chase Young or Nick Bosa type ability. I don't want to go that far yet, but he's in that same echelon of athlete and player. And I think, you're going to see a rotation on the defensive line a little bit more this year. And I think he could get into that rotation. He's special. I truly felt like if we lost out on him, this defensive line class was going to be, I mean, not a knock on who we got. I think we got 3 really good guys, but it was just going to be a gut punch. And so to get Edric Houston from a monster program, like you said, in Georgia, and to get him to come up to Ohio was definitely a win for us. It's great now that LJ has signed that 2-year extension, so then we can figure out, who the replacement will be when he actually retires. But it definitely helped to get Edric, knowing that LJ was going to be here. So I'm sure that Edric probably knew about the extension before we did. I'm sure that was information that may have been, given to the family just to kind of reassure them. But Edric Houston, monster. I'm excited about him. Like I said, he's a very violent player, and that's what you want. And you mentioned a wrestler too. Like, I will encourage every kid who doesn't play basketball, if you're a football player, I don't care how big you are, go wrestle. It is so good. It's one of the regrets I have from not doing in high school. Like, go wrestle. Violent hands, flexibility, all those things that you need on the football field, you can get from wrestling. So I'm excited about him. I think he's going to be a stud.
Yeah, for sure. So we use the term monster for him. This next guy, I don't know that there's another word to describe him. We throw it out there a lot, but this dude's a dog.
Yeah.
And you have seen this guy,
Mhm.
number one player in the state of Ohio, Springfield, Ohio, Aaron Scott.
Yeah.
Again, depending on where you look, 4-star, 5-star. At that point, you're splitting hairs. The kid's a stud.
Yeah.
Played some basketball, ran track.
Mhm.
One thing that really stood out to me is a 4.0 kid.
Yeah.
And to be a corner, I think it gets overlooked sometimes. You got to be smart. You got
Yes.
to be aggressive, but you have to be
Very.
smart and be able to digest and diagnose, kind of what you see immediately.
Yeah.
And obviously, by far, both sides of the ball, this kid had the best recruiting announcement of the entire
Yeah.
class.
That was pretty sick.
Absolutely trolled everybody, grabs the Michigan backpack, pulls the Braxton Miller jersey out. A thing that stands out to me about this kid, like you hear him talk, you watch him play. I've made no qualms about it that Damon Arnett is one of my favorite Buckeyes ever.
Yeah.
And Damon Arnett would let you hear about it. It didn't matter if it was a ball 30 foot over your head and he was covering you. He was going to let you hear about it.
He was a
And I
dog.
think that's Aaron Scott.
Yeah.
I think he brings that true, dog mentality. Like,
Yeah. I agree.
Ryan Day kind of had a tendency to recruit what I always called the choir boys when he took over. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, we want great kids, great
Yeah.
families. And I think the Scott family seems to be a really good family.
Yep.
But I want a dude out there, especially on defense, that is not afraid to chirp. And I
Yeah.
think that's Aaron Scott.
Yeah, no, Aaron Scott, yeah, like you mentioned, I had an opportunity to see him a couple times through the 7-on-7 circuit. We saw him in Mansfield. We saw him down at Ohio State as well. Long, rangy corner. I mean, the kid is every bit of 6'2". I'm going to be honest. Like, from seeing him last year and then seeing him this past season, like, I'm like, dude, he got taller. Like, he is a special, special, special talent. We even saw him as a sophomore, my first year at Findlay High School, and he was a stud then, and he was getting some MAC looks then. But to see the growth that he's made, he is your prototypical new wave of cornerback. The Trayvon Diggs types, Richard Sherman types, those long rangy guys who were really good at disrupting the vision lines of the receiver. The one thing I like about him the most, and having seen him in person, he's got really good feet for being as big as he is. I mean, he's 6'2", he's every bit of 180 pounds. And to be able to have good feet at that size out on the edge in those one-on-ones, that is major. Being that tall, it's already going to be to your advantage, but you got to make sure those feet and those hips match. And I think, his feet and his hips do match, his ability. Maybe get more fluid in the hips, but this is a dude that has the chance to be like the next like top dog at corner that we've seen at Ohio State. I mean, he has everything that you would want in a corner, can play man, can play zone. He is a guy that if you watch his senior year highlights, you're going to see a lot of offense. He played a lot of quarterback for Springfield this past year because they were starting a very young kid and they wanted to get their best athletes on the field. And so they put Aaron Scott in there a few times at quarterback, and he did some great things. Out of this class, I think he has the most upside, in my opinion. I think he's got future All-American upside, and he's a do-everything corner. Can play man, can play zone, can tackle. He's not afraid to do any of those things. So this dude from Springfield, Ohio, Aaron Scott, is going to be an absolute stud. I'm excited for him. I think this DB class is very good, and I think him being kind of the leader of it, it's going to be good for them for many years to come at Ohio State.
Yeah, you hit on the class as a whole. And, when this class finalized, we were all super stoked about it. And then the 25 class is doing what it's doing. But But anytime, you get an Aaron Scott, and then you get the next guy we're talking about, Bryce West.
Yeah.
Glenville Pipeline,
Yep.
obviously. Another kid, we'll call it 4.5 stars.
Yeah.
Also a track kid, so there's
Yep.
another, multi-sport athlete. Coaches, let your kids play multiple sports.
Yes.
Um, you
Please.
know, it's kind of ironic, the one comparison I kept seeing for him, and I kind of see it, watching his tape, but I feel like, okay, is it just a lazy comparison because he's another Glenville guy? Is Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah.
Kind of that long arm, really good in coverage. I don't know that he's as physical as Aaron Scott yet,
Yeah.
but that can come. And this is another kid that you've got to see, if
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, we got to see him a lot, man. Like the last 2 years at Mansfield Senior going up against Glenville, he was a guy that really stood out. And it wasn't because of his athletic ability. We'll talk about that in a second. It was because of his character. I mean, he was yes, sir, no, sir with the coaches, with the referees. He was dapping up our players when they were making good plays, but he was also chirping a little bit too. Like he was just the type of guy that you would want as like a face or the leader of your team. I think he's got a ton of potential. He is, I don't want to say he's positionless, but he's got the versatility to be an outside corner. He's also got the versatility to bump inside, like we saw with Jordan Hancock this year. And he's actually got the ability too to play some adjuster, which is our free safety. I think this kid has everything that you would want in a defensive back. Continues that Glenville pipeline. We always got to keep that going. He played a ton of offense this year for Glenville as well. And so he was just a natural playmaker. I I don't the Marshawn Lattimore comparison, I get it. I really do. I think Marshawn Lattimore though was in an era and an element of his own. Like, it's hard to compare somebody to Marshawn, but Bryce West is going to be a stud for us. I'm excited to see how his body develops when he gets there, because he does have a pretty good frame that he could be 200 pounds and be a guy that is bumped back at safety or down at nickel as well. So this is a kid, Glenville Pipeline's still strong, and he's a guy that will definitely be on special teams. I would guess as a freshman, and he'll be pushing for starter minutes sophomore, junior season. So big time player, ball skills, he's got everything that you would want. And obviously Glenville, we want to keep those kids coming here. So I'm excited about Bryce. He's a stud.
Next on the list, we're finally going to go, to another hotbed state. It's funny. You've talked about 3 guys. You've talked about Georgia and 2 Ohio kids.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and go to Texas.
Yeah.
Peyton Pierce.
Yeah.
4-star linebacker. We have, puffed our chests and everything for 6 episodes, and we finally got the James Laurinaitis hire to be official.
Yeah.
Everybody that says, how's his recruiting chops? Peyton Pierce is a Buckeye because of James Laurinaitis. There is no other way around it.
Yep.
This kid was, a Notre Dame lean, if you want to use that term, when Laurinaitis was there. And instantly Laurinaitis comes to Columbus. Peyton Pierce is like, I'm going to visit Columbus.
Yeah.
Comes to Columbus, commits. So, yeah, I mean, that we're going to chalk that one up to Laurinaitis, and I feel like that's a whole nother conversation, but I think March is going to be a pretty special month for James Laurinaitis.
Yeah.
Ideally toward the end of the month.
Yeah.
But what do you see in Peyton Pierce?
Peyton Pierce, man, he is your traditional throwback, like Mike linebacker. I put it in my notes, man. He is a thumper. He will knock your freaking block off. He is what you would want in a linebacker, a physically imposing presence. Another guy who was a state championship caliber wrestler as well in the state of Texas. So he's a very, very good athlete. Like I said, he's your traditional Mike. And I truly think like Buckeye fans will love this guy. He is more of a tackle to tackle linebacker. That's why I say more of the traditional Mike linebacker. But he is definitely the leader of their defense down in, Lucas, Texas at Lovejoy High School, I think it was. Yep. He is a thumper. Like I said before, when he hits you, you can just see it sounds different. Like when he hits you, like it's just, you could see that there is pop and he's trying to overpower you. He's got violent hands as well. Potential to be in that jack role too because of his pass rush, abilities. He's a pretty good blitzer. I mean, I think he's got everything that you would want in a Mike linebacker. And I think he's like the definition of what James Laurinaitis is trying to bring in at linebacker, a true silver bullet. He did have, I think it was his ankle or foot surgery this offseason. So he's at Ohio State, but he's not doing anything yet. So we'll see how he develops. And when he comes back, he's got to get healthy. But this is a guy that in year one will most definitely be a special teams guy. And down the line has a potential to be, that next big name for us. And to go to the state of Texas to get him, up to Ohio State, that's a big, big win for James Laurinaitis. And I think down the road, like this will be one of the Buckeyes or one of the Buckeye fans' favorite players in this class because he's a true throwback, man. I loved watching his tape. He's special.
Texas linebackers still give me PTSD because of Mike Mitchell, but let's hope that
oh man,
let's buck that trend.
Talk about a great freaking prospect. His film was outrageous.
I mean, the dude won the Spark Combine as a linebacker. I mean, it doesn't get much more athletically freaky than that.
Unreal.
But it is what it is. I mean, you can't hold that against the entire state.
Nope.
The next guy on this list is obviously a name I think a lot of people, that especially are watching us right now, will probably know for no other reason than the last name alone.
Yeah.
Sunbury, Ohio's own Garrett Stover.
Yeah.
4-star kid. I mean, this kid's been on campus more than Ryan Day as much. I mean,
yeah.
It's ironic that not only is his last name Stover, yes, he's Cade's cousin, if you don't know. But in the mold of Cade, we don't really know where this kid's going to play. I mean, he's listed as a safety.
Yep.
But he's got the body to possibly move down to a linebacker.
Yep.
I've just never seen, two guys from the same family, albeit they're just cousins. So, I mean, it's not like it's brothers, but be that much of a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
So this is a kid who, we can almost consider him local. I mean, we're 40 minutes from him.
Yep.
I got to watch a little bit of his film, talked to a buddy of mine who goes to Delaware Hayes games. His daughter goes there.
Okay.
Watched the Big Walnut game.
Yeah.
And Hayes was a very good team this year.
Yeah, this year they were very solid.
And he goes, Garrett Stover is just different.
Yeah.
He's like, if this kid has any help on that team, because they beat us.
Yeah.
He single-handedly, I think he ran the ball against them. Obviously played all around the field on defense. What do you see in not Farmer Gronk?
Yeah, no, so he's obviously Cade's cousin. And like you said, position-wise, he's listed as a safety. I think Ohio State is recruiting him as a linebacker. I think they want to see him get a little bit bigger. But you turn on the film, and the one word that comes to my mind is relentless. This dude is relentless to the football. Nothing is going to stop him from getting in on the tackle. Like, he's just got that relentless mindset that us defensive coordinators and defensive coaches, like, hey, you could mess up a million times, but your butt better be running to the football. And he is like the definition of that. And their scheme at Big Walnut the past 2 years, he has been their middle safety, which honestly is basically a Mike linebacker because they run an odd front, and we could get into the specifics of that. But he is free to the ball. I mean, he's see ball, get ball. That is what he's doing. I think at Ohio State, they want to see him get to that 220, 225 range and have him play linebacker. I think he has a potential to be like, I'm not going to compare him to Sonny, but think of Sonny when we went like with our big nickel and he was that strong side outside backer. I think he could do that. And I think he could do that at a very high level. I also think he could play will linebacker for us as well. So he's a guy that's got to get bigger, but man, you want to talk about a kid who wanted to be a Buckeye. Like, he is the type of person that you want on your defense. Nothing's going to stop him from getting to the ball, and he's going to be such a great ambassador for the football program. So I'm excited about this kid. It'll be interesting to see where they go with him, but I think James Laurinaitis is who he's going to start with the linebackers. And if he starts there, getting him bigger, he will find a way to get on the field. He's just that type of player, and that must run in the family because Farmer Gronk was basically a lunatic, and would do whatever it took to make sure that he was doing what's best for his brothers and for the program. So I'm really excited about this kid. I don't like saying I've got favorite players in this class, but like he's definitely up there for me, man. He's got tremendous potential.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too. I mean, and again, anytime you see a kid, because Big Walnut's not necessarily a powerhouse program, you see a kid work hard enough to get that offer. It's always rewarding.
Yeah.
We've talked about the big names in the secondary. Probably the quietest recruitment for sure on the defensive side of the ball, if not the entire class, as Miles Lockhart.
Yeah.
Chandler, Arizona, another 4-star kid, track kid. You know, the kid just wanted to be a Buckeye. Just
Yeah, he
like you
did.
talked about with Stover. He did not play the recruiting game. He committed, and you never heard a peep. Oh, he's wavering. He's taking this visit. He's taking that. Which again, take your visits, kids.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for.
Yep.
So yeah, this kid, I think a lot of people automatically assume he's the slot guy in the class, but I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah.
What do you see when you watch him?
Yeah, this is a guy who, like you said, wanted to be a Buckeye. I love players who provide versatility for coaches. I think he provides inside outside versatility as both an outside corner and an inside corner. I do think he's got the potential to play on the outside, but I do think this is a guy that Jim Knowles and Tim Walton are looking to be in that slot, Jordan Hancock type role. He's a very physical tackler. I mean, very physical. The school that he played at in Arizona, they ran a lot of cover 2, and their corners would sit down in the flats. And that was just, he was just licking his chops anytime a ball would come to his area, because in cover 2, he's allowed to be more aggressive. I think this is a guy who, like you said, with the quiet recruitment, kind of overlooked based on the top 2 guys that we got in Bryce West and Aaron Scott. But I think he's right there with them. He's 5'10", 180 pounds. I saw him on campus. I think he might be a little bit taller than that 5'10", but this is a kid who has all the traits to be, a very good, in my opinion, nickelback or slot corner. That if I was the coach, that's where I would put him. I think that's his best spot. He's a disruptor. He's physical with his hands, not afraid to tackle. He's rangy. I mean, this kid has a lot of those similar traits as we saw with Jordan Hancock this past year. And so I think that would be the best fit for him with Ohio State. But he's a kid that if he thrives on the outside, they could keep him on the outside at corner as well. So awesome to get a kid from Arizona. It worked out. It's worked out so far with Denzel Burke from being out there as well. So, another guy that I'm excited about in that defensive secondary.
Yeah, that's exciting. And then, you move into, another secondary guy, but on the back end, Jalen McClain, Seton Hall Prep out of New Jersey, 3-star safety, track kid. One thing with this class is I don't know that there's that big name when it comes to the safeties. But again, there's guys that are versatile.
Yeah.
And I think with Knowles, that's really what he wants. This is a kid who could potentially, as you hit on, with a couple of the other guys, can play corner, safety, nickel. I mean, it's there. It's just a matter of, what he finds as his niche.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Jalen McClain, first off, anytime we can recruit the state of New Jersey, like I always get excited about that because it's a underrated area for talent. I think New Jersey produces a ton of talent, and people who have come from New Jersey and come to Ohio State have fared pretty well. So I love the fact that we went to New Jersey to get this kid. I will tell you this: with our 2 safeties, do not think about star ratings. Look at what they can do on film. Look at what they're being recruited to do as well. This guy is being recruited to be a Lathan Ransom type player. He's not going to be asked to be a post safety or a true free safety all the time. He's going to be a guy that's going to either be down in the box a lot or he's going to be in that big nickel role at times as well. This is a kid who has a frame to be well over 200 pounds, and he's a thumper. I mean, he's not running from contact. He wants to hit you, and I put in my notes, he wants to get downhill and knock your block off. Like, that is what he wants to do, and I think he's a very underrated guy. And when you think about this kid, 5'11", 185, think of a Lathan Ransom type. That is who he gives me, a lot of those similar vibes. I think athletically, Lathan Ransom could be a little bit better, but this is a guy with the right coaching and right development. He could be a developmental kid who, a sophomore, junior, senior year, that could be a good player for us. So I like this kid a lot, man. I really do. I think I love safeties who are not afraid to play in man coverage from off, and I love safeties who are want to get downhill and be involved in the run game as well. So, and he fits that mold, and I'm excited about him too. I keep saying I'm excited about all these guys, but you cut on the film, and it's just like these are top notch players, man. Like, we're not getting, these lower level guys. And don't look at the stars. This kid can play. So I'm excited about him, and I think he could be really good for us down the road.
Yeah, another guy who, um, the rating kind of, I don't want to say rubbed people wrong about us taking the commitment of this kid, but I think he's very underrated, and that's Eric Mensah.
Yeah.
Kid we flipped from Virginia Tech. He's technically labeled an edge, much like Houston, though.
Yeah.
The potential is very much there, probably more so with Mensah to move inside. A flip from Virginia Tech. And that's another thing with this class, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There were multiple flips, which we don't do a lot.
Yeah.
But this kid, much like we talked about, like the Armstrong brothers, he's not going to have to come in and play right away.
No.
Get your frame right, get your body right, and see where you play. But definitely interested to see this guy.
Yeah, Eric Mensah, I love his film. I think he is a big knifing defensive tackle. I think he's got the frame to get to 290, 300 pounds, and to be a guy who can get upfield and create a ton of havoc in the backfield. Because if you watch his film, that's what he does. He's a violent player with violent hands, and he is relentless at trying to get upfield. If you look at his film, he's listed at 270. He looks like he's a little bit bigger than that. This is another guy. Don't pay attention to that star rating. What can he do? What traits were the Buckeyes looking at when they decided to try to flip this kid? And his ability to get upfield, create that penetration, and play with violent hands is the reason why they went after this kid. I'm not comparing him to Mike Hall by any means, but that was what the Buckeyes saw in a player like Mike Hall. Physical with his hands, has a quick first step, and can really work to get upfield and create penetration and cause havoc for those interior offensive linemen. I think Eric Mensah has a potential to do that. And like you said, it's such a great point. He's not going to be expected to come in and be a dude for us right away. But in year 2 or year 3, there's no reason why he can't have a Ty Hamilton type impact for us. And so this is another guy. Don't look at that star rating. Cut on his highlights, go see what the kid can do, and you'll see a dude that's dominating in every facet of the game. And I think he's got potential to be really good. We'll need to get bigger and need to get that development a little bit too. So he's a solid prospect. I totally see why the Buckeyes identified those traits and tried to flip him from Vatek.
Yeah, for sure. Staying on the D line, and another flip. That should not have ever been a flip, if we're being 100% honest. Dominic Kirks, Painesville, Ohio. Last member of the class. 4-star D lineman. Another kid, plays basketball. Flipped him from Washington. It just is kind of one of those mind-blowing things. Especially how you look at like the 25 class. I think maybe Kirks is the reason the 25 class is shaping up the way it is, to where basically the top kids in Ohio already have their offers. They're committable.
Yeah.
Let's go. This kid is a baller for sure.
Yeah.
To the eye. Have you got to see him at all, or just on film?
Just on film. I've not got to see him. He may have been. We took some kids down to the Ohio State camp. he may have been there trying to get an offer. I can't remember. I know there was some defensive lineman from Ohio that was, no, it wasn't him. It was a guy from Huber Heights, Wayne. His last name's Holland, I believe. But Dominic Kurtz, I think he's a good player. Hasn't been able to stay healthy. He had a transfer, so his recruitment kind of got lost a little bit in the shuffle. But the team that Michigan beat in the national championship was recruiting him very heavily. So I think they know that they know how to identify talent. I think Kurtz has potential to be a very good, strong side defensive end for us, but he's got the size that he could put on weight and play down as a 3 technique as well. Another guy that provides versatility, and he wanted to be a Buckeye. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Like, when you want to be a Buckeye and you have the ability to do that, and it just means something more, and you're going to come here and you're going to play even harder. So we talked about him in a previous episode. I think this guy has potential, just like Mensa, year 2, year 3, to be a guy for us. He gives me a lot of what's his name? Got the interception against Alabama in 14.
Oh, Steve Miller.
Steve Miller gives me a lot of Steve Miller vibes. And Steve Miller was a guy who was from Ohio, took some time to develop, but that last year turned out to be a pretty good player for us. He gives me a lot of those vibes. So I'm excited to see him get on campus. Love that he's a multi-sport athlete. I think LJ and there are 2 other now D-line coaches are going to do some great things with him, and he's got potential to be very good.
Yeah, Steve Miller, shout out my boy Jeremy Derrick, works for UPS in Canton. I don't know if Steve Miller still works there or not, but he was doing some stuff there.
Yeah.
So yeah, last guy in the class, another guy who now this, you have pounded it. You definitely ignore the stars when it comes to this kid.
Yeah.
And we've had Texas, we've had Ohio, we've had Georgia. Now we go to Florida.
Yeah.
Leroy Roker out of Fort Myers, rated as a 3-star, basketball and track kid. Definitely better than the number for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I don't know much about, the school that he was at. Was it Bishop Vero or something like that? I can't remember how to say the name, but some of the competition may not have been, up to par in recruiting rankings or rankers' eyes, but this kid has the potential to be a very good, like, true free safety, or what Ohio State calls an adjuster. He is long. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's rangy. He can cover a lot of ground. He's got fantastic ball skills on film. He's a very willing tackler, and he's a playmaker. Like, the one thing I loved about him is that he would make plays on defense, and then he would turn around and go on offense and be the running back and go break a long run as well. He's also a 1,000-point scorer in basketball. Like, this dude is a stud athlete. And I know people will say, oh, he's only a 3-star, rated 85 by 24/7. And I get that. That's what people want to look at. But cut on his film and see what he provides. And when you watch his film, you'll see that this is a true free safety that Ohio State is looking for, that is going to be able to cover a lot of ground. We want to be multiple in our coverages. If you watch us last year, when we played a lot of cover 1, which was just basically one high safety and playing man coverage on the outside. This is a guy that you put as that cover 1 safety in the middle of the field, and he'll be able to cover a ton of ground. And so I like his potential. I'm excited to see what Coach Gieri, or however you say his name, I probably butchered that, but I'm excited to see, what he can do with these underrated safeties. And the good thing is, we're pretty set at safety, at least with our first 3. We need guys like Jaden Bonsu and people like that to step up. But between Hartford, Downs, and Lathan Ransom, we're pretty set. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys develop and learn from those veterans that are ahead of them. So I'm excited about this kid. I said it about everyone. I'm excited about them all. I just think this is a very loaded class that provides so much versatility defensively. And as a defensive coach, like that's all you can ask for. When they missed out on those big fish, they went out and recruited traits that fit our defense. And that's the one thing I see with Leroy Roker, that he's got traits that fit what we need at free safety. So I think he's going to be a good fit for us.
Yeah, I mean, and this entire class, the cool thing with the number of guys returning is honestly these guys have a year to get ready.
Yeah.
Uh, they get a red shirt year without red shirting.
Yeah.
Um, the fact that they can go up against, I mean, even going against, ideally that second string offense is going to give them some fits because there's some really talented guys there.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of guys in this class though that I think are going to contribute when it's all said and done. I don't want to say late bloomers, but how like the Ty Hamiltons, the Tyleek Williamses,
Yeah.
those guys kind of came into that second year,
Yep.
and now are going to make a lot of money.
Yep.
Um, you know, we did some superlatives, with the offensive guys, and this is by no way, shape, or form, this is just throwing it out there because at the end of the day, I mean, there are recruiting rankings. It's like Urban Meyer said, if there's rankings, I want to win.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so the guy I'm most excited to see in this class is Lockhart.
Yeah.
I think with what he brings to the table, like West and Scott to me are like the proven commodities.
Yep.
We know them very well. They're Ohio kids. This kid's 3 hours behind, and it's no different than back when we were kids watching Oregon at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. You just
Yeah.
don't get to see those teams. You just get to see highlight film.
Yeah.
So he's by far the one I'm most excited to see. I think Edric Houston's going to be the most successful. I think at the end of the day, yes, we don't pay attention to stars, but at the same time, when it comes to kids like Jeremiah Smith, Edric Houston,
Yeah.
stars don't lie either.
Yep.
And then my favorite in the class is Aaron Scott.
Yeah.
I love what the kid brings.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting, like I pound the table, recruit scheme, not stars. But then when you get those guys who both fit our scheme and are those 4 or 5-star kids, then you start thinking about some of like the best that we've had, like the Joey and Nick Bosa's and the Chase Youngs and those guys on the defensive ends as defensive ends. I'm most excited to see if Edric Houston can live up to that hype. That is a tough spot to be in when you're coming in and you've got this absolute legend of a coach, and he's coached all these studs at both Penn State and Ohio State. And now you were the most like prized piece of this defensive line class, and they're kind of putting that pressure on you. I love to see if guys are able to answer the bell. The one thing that we do have to remember as Buckeye fans, though, it may not be his freshman year. It may not be his sophomore year. It might be his junior year. It might be his senior year when he figures it out. He could be a late bloomer like Zach Harrison was. That is okay. That does not mean he was a disappointment by any means. So I'm excited to see if he could kind of live up to that hype that we've kind of placed on him. He seems like the guy that's going to welcome it. And he seems like the guy that wants to be there and play for Larry Johnson. So I think Coach Jay is going to be able to get the most out of him. To me, the kid who's going to be the most successful in this class, and I said I wouldn't pick a defensive back, but Aaron Scott, I mean, he just has all the tools of your new wave NFL cornerback. And I just think that he is a special, special kid and a special talent. And he comes from a great family. And I just think that there's so much positive things that are going on around him. And I think Coach Walton is going to be able to maximize those abilities that he has. I love the fact that he's not going to be asked to jump right into being a dude for us. I love the fact that he could kind of be brought along, kind of like Jermaine Matthews was last year. And if we need him to play, he'll be able to play. I think we have the best cornerback room in the country. I really do. I think Iggy and Burke are studs with Jermaine and Calvin Sampson. Everybody forgets about him. That kid's an absolute monster. So I just think this cornerback room is loaded. And I think Aaron Scott has the potential to just be that next great corner here at Ohio State. And if you ask me who my favorite player in this class would be, I'm going to go with Garrett Stover. This dude is just relentless. We always used to say, when I was in college, our defensive coordinator would say, we need to be soul takers. And automatically you think something super morbid like Mortal Kombat and your soul is mine and things like that. Like, it's not that. It's like,
Finish
no.
him.
Yeah, finish him. it's being relentless and identifying what the offense is good at and taking that away from them. And I think this is a dude who is just a football guy. I think he's going to be a film study junkie, and he's passion and intentionality to get to the football is just, it's phenomenal. Like, I could watch it all day long. And so regardless of what positions he's at, I think this is going to be a dude that Buckeye fans will love, and that's always going to be around the football, always going to be geeked up about it. And he's just a true silver bullet in my mind. So he's probably my favorite guy in the class, man. I just love to see those guys who are relentless, true defensive dudes, man. Just kind of a little bit of a meathead and going to do whatever it takes to get to the football, man. That's what I love to see.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, there's some guys in this class that people are going to be very, very pleased with when it's all said and done.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so with it being the defensive episode, Mount Rushmore, this was hard. This was real hard.
It's a hard.
We decided to go safeties.
Oh, it's so hard.
So a couple of notes. I'm going to preface mine with I've got to keep it to guys who I got to watch play. So therefore,
okay,
you know,
good.
I cannot, in good faith, as good as he was, put Jack Tatum on my list.
Yeah.
You know, Jack Tatum was different. Like, I mean, my man was built different.
Yeah.
We all know Jack Tatum was great.
Yes.
But, you know, unfortunately, it's just not fair.
Yeah.
The other thing with this is because he did not play safety at Ohio State, I'm not considering Malcolm Jenkins.
No, you can't.
Malcolm played corner at OSU,
yeah,
in case you
can't
didn't know.
Consider him. Yeah.
So with that said, the bottom three are not in order.
Okay.
I feel like my number one is at least going to be one of your top two.
Okay.
And you cannot have a safety discussion at Ohio State in our lifetimes and it not be Mike Doss.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this dude, it was the first jersey I ever bought.
Yeah.
First OSU jersey. To come back for his senior year and just will that team to a national title. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. 02 Miami was not as good as 01 Miami.
No.
But 02 Miami was insane.
It was pretty good.
So, yeah, I mean, Mike Doss, number one, far and away. I mean, fortunate enough to have met him multiple times. You know, I should have brought it and put it on camera. He told me that I hold the record for the most words he's ever had to write on a helmet. I had him sign it and do like 6 inscriptions. You know, stats, awards, and then the last thing I had him put was champion at every level.
Yeah.
He's got a state ring, he's got a college ring, and he's got a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
So he's by far and away my number one. These next three guys, no order. Jordan Fuller.
Underrated, man.
So underrated. And now you look, the dude's a captain.
Yeah.
Has a ring.
Yep.
You just can't beat it. Kind of came in very underrated.
Yeah.
Kind of flew through the radar and balled out.
Yes, he did.
After him, you know, I think you got to go Malik the Freak.
Okay.
A dude that I wish we would have had more of.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
You know, so electric with the ball in his hands. Turnover machine.
Yep.
I'll never forget. I was riding the Coda bus back to the fairgrounds after the 16 Michigan game, the JT Barrett spot game.
Yeah.
And my buddy and I, we're sitting there, and across from us is Malik's mom.
Okay.
Also riding her, you know. And so the guy I was with, you know, Buckeye fan, you know, kind of a casual Buckeye fan, but we got some tickets to the game. Shout out Coach Henton.
Yeah.
Also had Jerry Springer sitting behind us.
Okay.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
But, you know, he loved Malik. And so
Yeah.
he's sitting there talking to his mom, and we're getting ready to get off the bus. He goes, you know, I just ask you one thing. Can you make your son stay next year? and obviously, you know, he ended up declaring.
Yeah.
But it's just funny to see, you know, it's those types of stories. Seems like a good kid, great mom. You know, it took him a little bit to find his way in the league, but now he's in Dallas and killing it.
Yeah, he's doing great things.
And my last one, not flashy at all on the field, crazy personality, and was also the roommate of 112 gauge Cardell Jones. Big play Tyvis Powell. You know,
Yeah,
the Michigan 2-point conversion,
yeah,
Tyvis makes the play. The
yeah,
Sugar Bowl against Bama, Tyvis makes the play. Like,
yep.
how many times in our lives have we yelled, just slide, Tyvis?
Just
And he still doesn't.
and he
Uh,
still does it.
but
Oh
yeah,
man.
so those are my four. I know it's kind of a weird list.
Okay.
Uh, but when you look at it that way,
That's a very solid list. So I struggled with this one, not gonna lie, because in one of our first episodes, I talked about Donnie Nicky being one of my favorite players in Ohio State history, but I could not objectively put him in the Mount Rushmore of safeties because my reasoning for him being my best player, my favorite player, is because of number 25 that he wore. So I couldn't object. I couldn't put him in here in the Mount Rushmore, and it pains me to say that I didn't include him. But my number one is the same as your number one. Mike Doss, I put in my notes, the GOAT. Like, to get him to come back his senior year, to see the impact that he had on this program and the future of that position at Ohio State, to be an Ohio guy, like, that was something that I always admired about him. Obviously being Harding guys, we learned about him when I was, I would have been in 6th or 7th grade, or 6th grade. Gosh, I don't even remember how old I was when Harding played, Canton McKinley. So we knew about Mike Doss then, and to see him go to Ohio State and have the career that he had, was just fantastic. My favorite thing about him, though, was the tandem that he had with the Indianapolis Colts. I know it's not his time as a Buckeye, but between him and Bob Sanders, who is like right behind Eric Metcalf as my favorite football player ever, like, I feel like because Bob Sanders was injured, we just got robbed of such a good duo. But Mike Doss, absolute GOAT, could do absolutely everything at safety, downhill, play over top, play in the free safety, play strong safety. He could do everything. So that is my number one, Mike Doss. Shout out to him, man. To see that number two out there was always special. Number two for me, and I did rank these. I am going to go with rankings. Number two, Malik Hooker. I just put in my notes, playmaker. Like, as a defensive coach, there's certain things that you can't coach. And the ability to just make athletic, freaky plays, that is not something that we go out and coach and work on every single day in practice. Yeah, we work on ball skills, we work on footwork, we work on those things. But at some point, your instincts have to take over. And he is one of the best instinctual safeties that I've ever seen. That last year at Ohio State was just electric, was phenomenal. And like you said, wish he would have stuck around, but totally understand why he didn't. But as far as instincts went and just natural ability back there at safety, it was hard for me not to, put like I at first I had him as number one, but I couldn't do that to Mike Doss. So Malik Hooker, natural playmaker, absolute stud. Number three for me is Will Allen. Will Allen, everybody remembers him, the hit on Willis McGahee. And I know, like, to this day, like, that gives me chills. Like, I hate that happened to Willis McGahee. But it also showed, like, the violent nature of the way Will Allen played. And I loved to see that. I love to see him make plays when we needed him to make plays. You think of the Michigan game, the 14-19 win, he gets the pick, he seals the game. And so those type of things against San Diego State, I remember him having a tipped pick six and things like that. Like, that dude, I just remember going from number 26 to number 4, and I just remember all those things. Funny thing, fast forward to my senior year of college, I play football with his brother at Urbana University, Steven. And so Will Allen's he's had a good career in the NFL. He was with the Niners at the time. And it was senior day, and Will Allen's there. I know it's senior day, and I'm a little emotional, but I vividly remember looking over at my mom and being like, or my dad, and be like, Dad, Will Allen's here. Like, and I'm like getting ready to play a game. I'm like, Dad, Will Allen's here. Oh my gosh. And the one thing that stood out to me about him, he's small. Like, he is not a big guy at all.
Mhm.
So you think about the plays and the hits that he had, man, he was just special. And then the other guy for me, and it's crazy to think about, like, all three of these guys were at one point, you know, well, no, two of these guys were in the secondary together. And that is Dante Whitner or Dante Hittner. Okay. The definition of a strong safety. I
Yes.
remember when I got moved to safety, our coach, God, man, I'll never forget this in my entire life. When they were selling me on moving to defense, they brought him up because I always wore Ohio State stuff at school. And they were like, hey, Dante Whitner, you're a big Buckeye fan. You could be playing the same spot as him. I'm like, dude, first off, I'm at Urbana. Don't compare me to freaking Dante Whitner, okay? I know I'm good, but I ain't that good, all right? But Dante Whitner, you talk about a guy that'll knock your block off. He could have been an extra linebacker. Like, he could have done that, but he had the ability to be back at safety, like on the hash, had the ability to be down in the box, kind of like we saw with Sonny Styles last year. And he just did it at such a high level. So Dante Whitner rounds out my Mount Rushmore. I got an honorable mention of Damon Moore, big name Damon Moore fan. Shout out to Fostoria. And Jordan Fuller was in that honorable mention for me as well. But that's my top four. I think it's a pretty solid list.
Oh, for sure. That this is a tough one. I mean,
Yeah.
but we knew there would be tough ones, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, just kind of throwing out a couple of topics we've talked about, and if anybody's watching this, throw us some feedback. But obviously, February going into spring ball, a little slow time.
Yep.
We're gonna try to hit on some combine stuff coming up. Not a ton of Buckeye coverage there, but it'll be interesting to see what Marv does.
Yeah.
Some of that mock draft season. We love mock drafts, so I think you'll
Yep.
see a lot of that coming from us. We'll cover spring ball. March. I think March is going to be huge for the 25 class. There's
Yeah.
some potential boomage lingering out there that
Yeah.
this 25 class is going to be flipping special.
Yeah. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really
Uh,
good. No, March is has the potential to be a fun time, man. This around the time that Ohio State starts sending the stuff out to the coaches to come down for practice and things like that. So I always try to use the Coach Hinton connection, to get some extra access, that you normally wouldn't get. So I just love going down there, man, and just seeing guys on both sides of the ball, just the development and the coaches just coaching so hard. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see my guy Luke Montgomery go out there and compete for a starting spot. So March is definitely going to be a fun time.
yeah, for sure. Speaking of March, unpaid plug. If anybody is bored next Saturday, the 1870 Society putting on an event at the Woody. I think it's $250 a pop.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
saw that.
tons of player access. Coach Day, um, your boy Luke is going to be there.
Yep.
He is on the list. Autograph signing, fundraiser, obviously, self-guided tours. The question I've gotten as I've talked about this event to people is why I'm not going, being who what I do. The only thing that stands out for me is I can't take my own stuff. So
Yeah.
that's the only reason I'm
Yeah.
not going. You get to the level of a memorabilia collection I've got, and you become very OCD about what you add and why.
Yeah.
But for a lot of folks who enjoy that encounter with the guys and Coach Day, check it out.
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely. I think it's going to be I think it's expensive, but it's also like, it's doable. You know what I mean? So I think that'd be a pretty cool event.
yeah. So before NIL, little caveat. Actually, it was Coach Tressel's last year, right before camp started. They did a picnic with the team.
Okay.
Uh, City barbecue catered, similar price structure. You left with a football signed by all of the juniors and a football signed by all of the seniors.
That's cool.
Jaden was like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So I have a picture of Terrell Pryor holding Jaden. It was TP, Kenny G, that quarterback room. And then there's also Jaden and I doing OHIO with Mr. and Mrs. Tressel at the 50 of the Woody. So you
That's
got
pretty
Jaden's
cool.
like 4-year-old self out there like this,
Yeah.
like, so another cool thing.
Yeah.
Um, Football wise, I think that's all we've got. But
Yeah,
Coach
man.
Slate, go ahead and hit our shout out for the week. It's a
Yeah.
bittersweet one.
Yeah, it's definitely a bittersweet one. No, if you are a member of the Harding community, the Marion Harding community, you know that we lost an absolute staple for the last 40 years in Scott McCreary, longtime softball coach, um, father of Brett McCreary, who was the baseball coach, coach football, Harding grad, 1969, like an absolute legend. And, he passed away unexpectedly this past week. But you want to talk about somebody who was the definition of red and black and the definition of honor forever. Um, the guy passed away on President's Day. Like, so it's just, it's so bittersweet because it was unexpected. And I know the pain that the family's in, but you want to talk about a life that was lived and that was about service and community. Scott McCreary lived that, helped out with the bowling program, just did so many great things that went kind of unnoticed because he didn't care about that. He just cared about the kids. He cared about supporting anything Harding related. When I was a head coach, he approached me about helping do the end zone camera for us on games. And I'm like, yeah, we'll pay you. We'll do this stuff. And he was like, no, I don't want you to pay me. This is all I want. Every time you get a new t-shirt, make sure I got a 2X and make sure I have a comfy chair when I'm recording these games. And he would be out there, torrential downpours, didn't matter. He was just so loyal, and you could always count on him being there. So, thoughts and prayers are definitely with his family. Had the opportunity to hang out with them yesterday, after his visitation, and it's definitely a huge loss. But talk about a legacy that was left. You know, as guys who are from Marion who bleed red and black, we hope that we're able to leave a legacy like that, when it's our time. So shout out to Coach McCurry, man. Fantastic guy. And may he rest in peace, and prayers with his family as they go through this time right now, man. So yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Definitely
yeah,
a kind of a full circle of life thing for me when it comes to Coach McCrary. My sister-in-law played softball for him. Her senior year was '05. My
yep,
son was born in '05. My son bowled. Scott
yeah,
McCrary was the assistant bowling coach.
yeah,
And I relayed this message to the family. One of my favorite memories, the last 300 my son shot in high school. And it's crazy to say the last one that he shot in high school.
yeah,
Um, all the boys are dapping him up from both teams, and he works his way through the entire crowd of both teams. So you're talking 10 kids to go find Coach Max sitting there watching and shake his hand.
yeah,
It's one of those things that I watch probably more than I should, but
yeah,
it's cool to see the effect that he had on those kids. And Brett brought back the varsity H club at Harding.
yeah,
And so Jaden was involved in a leadership role there. With the startup of it throughout his years at Harding, and uh, so just a tried and true Harding family. And
yeah,
with Brett being the history buff that he is, only
yeah,
fitting. I guess silver lining that it was on President's Day.
yeah, man. That
Um,
was I didn't and when I text Brett, and I didn't even think about that. So it was definitely very fitting. But yeah, man, Coach McCurry was the man. He was such a pillar and such a staple, man. He's definitely going to be missed.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, thoughts and prayers to the family. Um, but with that said, we will see you guys next week.